Hello and good evening. You're very welcome to tonight's information session on the Bachelor of Arts degree at Mary Immaculate College. My name is Rachel Godfrey and I'm the Faculty Administrator in the Faculty of Arts, and I'm going to be introducing our speakers tonight. Tonight's session is going to give you an opportunity to hear about 5 of the subjects that are offered on the BA programme, and those subjects are Geography, Media and Communication Studies, Drama and Theatre Studies, Philosophy and Gaeilge. So you will hear from a member of the faculty in each of those departments. They will speak to you about their subjects, and at the end of tonight's session there will be about a half an hour for questions and answers. So if you have questions about a particular subject or about the programme in general, please do use the question and answer function, and we will do our very best to answer all of your queries at the end of tonight's session. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our very first speaker. So our first speaker tonight is Professor Des Mccafferty, who is head of the Geography Department in Mary I, and he is going to talk to you about taking geography as part of the BA degree. So I'm going to hand over now to Des.
Okay, thank you very much, Rachel, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this session. I trust that you all had a relatively smooth return to school again this week. I know it hasn't been under ideal circumstances by any means, and we've still got the restrictions, but hopefully that's going okay for you. So, as Rachel said, what I want to do in the next few minutes is give you some indication, some idea as to what you will be doing if you decide to take geography as one of your academic subjects in the BA in Mary Immaculate College. So first I'll talk a bit about the nature of geography and then how you're going to approach it and what you can do with it once you have got your degree in geography. Okay, so if we go to the first slide, please, James. Okay, I'm not sure if we've got that slide up. Doesn't seem to have advanced. Okay, well, I'm not sure if you're seeing the slideshow, but what I will begin with is the nature of geography itself as a subject. Geography is probably unique in the arts faculty in Mary Immaculate College in that it spans across a very wide range of disciplines. In geography, there are bits of economics, there are bits of sociology, there are bits of sociology, and so on. Things that you will learn in other subjects are also in geography, but in geography, they're brought together in a particular way. And that is in a way that is designed to give you very deep insights into the nature of our world. What makes geography unique, what distinguishes it from, say, economics or sociology, is the focus on the environment and on the way in which our environment has become increasingly problematical in recent times. You'll all be very aware, I've no doubt, of the wide range of environmental issues that we have faced in very recent times. This slide shows you some images from various environmental catastrophes that, as I say, have occurred quite recently. So we've got images here from very severe flooding in the state of Texas in the US in 2016, flooding that has occurred in more locally in Donegal in 2017, and then just from last year, the wildfires that raged throughout the western states of the US, especially California, but not just California. So these are all very stark indications to us that things are changing in our environment and changing in a very serious manner for humankind. So geography is the subject, I think, that more than any other engages with these environmental issues and tries to give you, as I said, a holistic understanding as to what lies behind them, what factors have brought them about, and what factors are complicating our response to them, what is making that response more difficult. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that geography is a subject with a very high degree of contemporary relevance. It is very relevant to the world in which you live. And if you're interested in that world, if you're interested in your environment, then you can't help but have an interest in geography. So to give a bit more detail on that, we'll go to our next slide, which looks at one of the main divisions of the subject, which is physical geography. Basically, geography divides down into two main subfields, physical geography and human geography. Physical geography deals with the natural environment, the world in a sense as it would be, or maybe has been, before the advent of humankind. So we're going right back there in geological time over billions of years to look at the evolution of our modern environment, our modern landscape, but looking in particular, I suppose, at changes in a period of geological time that is now referred to as the Anthropocene. That is the period of time during which the main influence on the physical environment has been human societies. We know that this is now the case, that the primary agents of change in our environment are ourselves, human beings. So in physical geography, besides looking at the longer time scale, we will also look at this particular period, this Anthropocene, and at how it has become problematical for the environment and for us. Within physical geography, you'll be familiar, if you've done any secondary school geography, with some of the key themes. So we'll be looking there at things like tectonic processes in the environment, and then looking at what we call surface processes like weathering and erosion, and how they together shape our natural environment. That's the subfield then of physical geography. The other side of the discipline is human geography, which is illustrated on our next slide. In human geography, we are concerned with human cultures and societies and how they shape their environment. So among the big issues here that we will look at are such things as urbanization. We now live in an urbanized world, but that's actually a very recent development. It's only in the last decade or so that our world has become more urban than rural in character. But it is now urbanizing very rapidly. And besides the environmental issues that arise from that, there are all kinds of social, economic, and political issues as well, which we look at in human geography. So we see how, for example, cities grow, how they develop, and we look at the kinds of tensions that arise within them based on conflicts over resources, essentially, in urban areas. Conflicts over the use of space, as illustrated there in the centre of the slide, where you've got an image from an area in Derry, Northern Ireland, or Londonderry, as in the slide. That's an area known as the Fountain, located just beneath the walls of Derry, and illustrative of ongoing conflicts in that city. In human geography, you will also look at issues such as globalization, how our economy has changed, so we are no longer in any sense self-sufficient, but we depend so much on other countries for both our exports and our imports. We look at the implications of that process of globalization, which are very important. We look there at things like the anti-globalization movement, which has emerged very strongly in recent years. Outgoing President Trump in the US is very much associated with that anti-globalization movement. And indeed, the Brexit event, which has now been cemented as of the end of last year, that also is an example of anti-globalization sentiment being expressed in a political form. So those are the two main subfields of geography and what they look at, or some of what they look at. In geography in Mary Immaculate College, you will also spend a good deal of time engaged in field studies. That brings me to my next slide. If you'd advance, please, James. This perhaps is the part of the programme that you will find most different from your Leaving Cert experience, because in Mary Immaculate College, we place a very strong emphasis on the idea that you can't really understand your environment unless you get out into your environment. So we will take you out in our field trips, which occur right across our programme. So we've got one module which is entirely dedicated to field studies. You spend a week in a selected area and learn all about the environment in that area, both physical and human, and how it operates. And then throughout other modules, there are shorter field trips to the locality in Limerick or the Midwest region, like the Burren and County Clare, where you'll spend a day or half a day engaged in the study of that area. In those field trips, one of the big things we'll emphasize is the skill of collecting data about your environment, which you can subsequently then analyze and from which you can learn something about what's going on in the environment. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide, please, James. Why should you study geography? What's the value to you ultimately of a geographical education? Well, the answer to that relates back to what I said at the start about the relevance of geography in the modern world. Through the study of geography, you will acquire a range of skills that are of direct and very important relevance in a whole range of careers, such as for those that are listed here. I'll just mention some very briefly. If you want to become a planner, for example, employed by a city council or by a county council, then geography is a platform into a planning or a career as a planner. If you want to work with a company that's engaged in local development, and there are many such now throughout the country, partnerships of various kinds, local development organizations of various kinds, they employ geographers because they recognize that geographers have the skills that they need. Economic and social consultancy is a big area of employment. The department here in Mary Immaculate College has done a lot of work, for example, over the years with various councils, city councils and county councils, providing them with some research on particular local issues. And that is a field in which many geographers are now employed, giving that kind of advice to public bodies. Other areas include those listed there, such as tourism and, of course, teaching itself. Next slide, please. I'll just deal with one of the most frequently asked questions about studying geography in Mary Immaculate College, and that is the question of whether or not you need a Leaving Cert. The answer is that you don't. Sorry, do you need a Leaving Cert geography? You don't. It's not essential. Now, obviously, it is beneficial if you have taken a Leaving Cert geography and if you've done well at it, but it isn't a prerequisite. And every year, a number of students on our programme very successfully take geography through to degree level who have not, in fact, studied Leaving Cert geography. What you do need, as the slide says here, is a strong interest in your environment. If you have that, we can take it from there and you can successfully pursue geography. So, final slide, I think. Thanks, James. This is the Department of Geography in Mary Immaculate College. Why might you come to study geography here with us in Mary Immaculate? There's a whole range of reasons, but very briefly, I'll just emphasize a few of these. The program we offer has a very wide range of choice within it. So I have mentioned in the presentation things that you can study, but you can pick and choose to a very large degree which areas of geography you wish to specialize in. We provide this choice because of the fact that it is such a wide-ranging subject, and we recognize that people tend to have interests in particular areas. So you may see yourself as a physical geographer, but with not so much interest in human geography, or vice versa. Whichever, we can cater for that. The members of the department are all very research active in their fields. They're all actively engaged in publication. We all supervise masters and PhD students. So we are all at the cutting edge of our fields and are able to guarantee you that you will be engaged in the study of matter of great contemporary relevance and interest. Our teaching facilities are very good. We have a full range of facilities, including laboratory spaces of various kinds. We have a dedicated teaching space of our own, a wet lab, a microscope lab, GIS facilities, and so on. So, as I said, this is the team, and we hope that we will see some of you in Mary Immaculate College in the not too distant future. Thank you very much for listening.
That's great. Thank you very much, Des, for that very informative presentation on geography. And just to remind you that if you have any specific questions about geography, just use the question and answer function to ask us those questions, and Des will be happy to answer them at the end of tonight's session. So we're now moving on to our next subject, and that is media and communication studies. So I'm going to hand over now to Dr. Rosemary Day.
Thanks very much, Rachel, and welcome everybody to this evening's session on some of the subjects that we offer in the Liberal Arts programme in Mary Immaculate College. As Des Mccafferty, the head of geography, just told you there, much of what we do is about the human, and it often occurs to me that arts subjects really are all about humanity. And our subject is called Media and Communication Studies because what cuts us out from other species, or what makes us truly human, is our ability to communicate to one another. And that's the underpinning philosophy and set of researches and understandings that we have in our study. But as you can see from my first slide here this evening, we tend to think of media in terms of what we see on the screen, small screen like your television set, or even smaller screen nowadays like your phone that obviously all of us can't live without. So we have found over the years teaching this wonderful subject that our examples change, and primarily nowadays we tend to talk about what you are doing in your own lives on screen. We don't neglect the big screen either, film, but that's become almost historical in terms of what people are actually doing. So we engage with what you yourselves are doing on your phones on a daily basis, and we examine what that is about, and we also then give you the skills and the understandings and the conceptual frameworks, etc., that you would need to go out and have a good career in one of these areas. And I've started this evening with my first slide looking at a number of graduates of ours who are working currently in RTE, and I'm going to show you some more who are working in other areas. I've started with RTE, I suppose, mainly for anybody who is watching with you, for your parents or older people who are watching, people who still tend to rely on television. And then I'm going to move on to newer media, social media, digital online media. So here, just in brief, you'll see underneath the RTE logo, a man who should be very familiar to you from the 6-1 News. The head, our chief political correspondent in RTE is Micheál Lahan from Cavanagh. He was one of our early graduates. Next to him, the blonde lady is Jackie Hurley. I'm sure most of you who are interested in sport will be well familiar with Jackie. Next to him is a guy who is in production in the sports department in RTE. And next to him is a woman, again from Limerick, Eamon Rahney, who is works as a TV producer. Others there amongst you work in various radio, television, but also in digital and online content. So, for example, Rachel Connery is involved in online content. Down on the bottom line, Cliona O'Leary is the deputy head of all sport on all platforms. So be it television, radio, digital, print, Whatever platform RTE is providing content on, she's in charge of it. And next to her then is Petula Martin, who you may know from the business, as RTE's business correspondent. James, move on to my next slide, please, where I'm going to show you some of the people we have working in other television stations and film and the AV industry, if you like, mainly in Ireland, but also abroad. So we have people working in every television station and every radio station in the country, and also in all of the major platforms like Google, LinkedIn, Snapchat. I don't think we have anybody in TikTok, but certainly Twitter. All of them, we have somebody who has gone through the 4-year programme with us. And in this particular set of slides, you'll see that Troy Studios is featured because Troy is now located on the outskirts of Limerick, and it's been important for us and for our graduates to develop a good relationship with them, and we have people working there. We have people working in TG Cahir, both as journalists. The woman on the bottom right-hand corner, she's a news editor. That means the person who manages the news, in charge of the news. We call them a news editor. And we have cameramen or camera people in TG Cahir, but also in Sky, actors in Emmerdale Farm, people working in the film industry, for example, on the bottom corner, bottom row there, the blonde lady, Vanessa Gilday. She's an award-winning film producer. And to her left, Tommy Wolfen, who worked with the GA, works with the GA, promotions, online content, etc. All very, very important. And you may recognise some of the other names and faces there. At the top, we have the producer of the Vets on Call, RTE, very popular series, and down from him, Paddy Leonard from Shock Law. Can I have the next slide, please, James? But it's not all about the screen. I know people are fatigued from screen time at the moment. I know you certainly are, having most of you been trying to do all of your content online since Christmas, and quite a bit when you were in 5th year. So I'd just like to point out that we also have somebody working in every radio station in the country and others abroad. So we have Stephen Ryan there, who's in the BBC World Service. We have people in Today FM. In the bottom right-hand corner, I didn't teach Graham Norton, and nor did I teach Pat Kenny, but the young woman standing beside Graham Norton there, Siofra Mulqueen, she's one of our recent graduates. She graduated about 3 years ago. She did her work experience in Clare FM, in Today FM, and in Radio Kerry. All 3 stations were very pleased with her and have looked for other people to come and work for them since, and offered her a job. She chose to work in Today FM, where she is producing Pat Kenny's morning chat show, if you listen to it, or maybe your mammy's listened to it. Other chat shows where we have people in areas of importance would be Morning Focus on Clare FM. On the top there, Gavin Grace is one of ours. Next to him is a senior journalist in the Clare Champion, Claire Byrne. Next to her, an editor in the Cork Examiner. Down at the bottom, the manager of Spin South West. And in fact, when Spin South West first started, over half of the on-air staff were employed directly from Mary Immaculate College. Each and every one of them had been a volunteer in our radio station here, Wired FM, and I want to talk a little bit more about that towards the end, because it's really important to get lots and lots of practice being on air, making your own programmes, putting a portfolio together before you actually go out and get one of these brilliant jobs. I'll take the next slide, please, James. So this is my final slide in relation to where people end up after studying in media. And I chose on this one to look at one woman in particular. It's the same girl in each of the 3 photographs. The first one on the left-hand side of your screen is when Michelle Ryan was back here to talk to our current crop of students. Sorry, that's in 2019. And she is in charge of digital content for Troy Studios and for Ardmore Studios. And she's had a very successful production career, and this is the area that she's chosen to settle in, and she tells us she loves it, and gave lots of hints and advice, practical advice to our students, some of whom have taken taken her lead and followed in her path. So this particular one here is when she was applying. She came second in the world competition for student film. So a fantastic opportunity. James, I'm going to finish with the slides now, so I'm going to talk directly to you. and you'll get a look at what one member of the department looks like. So those were some of the things that people can do. I'm finished with the slides now. Thanks very much, James. No more slides. So the things that people can do that isn't mentioned up there is to work in areas that you might not imagine. So a degree in Media and Communication Studies also equips you for work in advertising, in marketing, in human resource management. A number of our graduates go into teaching, even though media is not a subject at primary or secondary school level. We find was told by school principals for their hiring and by those who are teaching on the PPMEs, the education programs, that our graduates have a really good manner in the classroom. And I would say that for anyone working in any area in life, or even after work, when I'm looking forward to retirement myself, in presenting yourself and in getting your message across, it's really, really useful training, and it's a wonderful set of skills to have. So if I could finish with the slides, please. No more slides. I'd like to tell you about the actual course and what it is that we offer and how you would progress. In the first year, you take Media and Communication Studies along with 3 other subjects that you choose. You may choose some of the subjects from tonight or some of the other subjects that you'll find the reports on and introductions to up on the web. Any subject goes well with Media and Communication Studies. We've had great success, as you saw in the second slide, with people who speak Irish, working for TG Cahir or Radio na Gaeilge, or working in any of the Irish language production houses. But we've had equal success with people who go to work in RTE, in the print journalism, in any of the national newspapers and the local newspapers, and in local radio. Mainly because they have the set of skills, they have a piece of paper that says that they're able to work as a journalist, that they're good grounding in Media and Communication Studies, but also because they have the second string to their bow, which is really important. And that's the second subject that you bring with you. So whether it be philosophy or maths or geography or Gaeilge, every one of you, if you graduate with a degree in liberal arts from Mary I, and if Media and Communication Studies is part of that, you will have something extra to offer when you're in competition with other people from other universities who are looking for the same job, but who only have a degree in one subject, just in media. And that's been very, very important to our graduates over the years. In your first year, you take 2 modules, and both of them are introductory modules. They set the scene, if you like, for the next 3 years of work. The first one introduces you to broadcasting and explains to you how television works, how content provision on the small screen on your phone works. You all know how that works as users of it, but as producers of content, it's a different matter. And so by the end of the 4 years, we expect you to be able, like many of our graduates, to go and work as content creatives in the likes of LinkedIn or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever, or working for a large corporation and managing their PR and in particular their online content. And in the second semester, you learn about communication theory, and that might sound dry, but actually it's all about humanity. It's all about how one human communicates to the other face to face, or in large group settings, or in particular nowadays on your phone. I forgot to set my clock, so I'm not managing my time very well. I'm going to speed up and finish up by telling you that in the next 2 years of teaching, of taught classes, you spend nearly half of your time making programs, actually going out, researching, finding the story, filming it, recording it, editing it, presenting it, and at the end of your degree, you will have a 20-minute documentary that you could enter into festivals, or that certainly has proved to be a really good calling card for people looking for a job in the industry, along with smaller pieces that you'll have made and developed along the way. Course element of things, but we also are very fortunate in Mary I to be partners with LIT in managing a student-owned radio station, which is a licensed FM station called Wired FM. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, it would be well worth your while tuning in to 99.9 FM. And all of the programmes are produced by students. The students don't have to study media, but obviously media students do really well and produce really good programs, and ones that are cutting edge, alternative, different, and again, they enter into national and international competitions and do particularly well. And I'm aware that I'm running over my time. It was, and I want to let you know that if you want to ask any questions, obviously you can do so after this session, but you can also email me on rosemary.day, that's my surname, Rosemary Day, rosemary.day@MIC, M for Mary, M for I, Immaculate, C for College, universitylimerick.ie. So rosemary.day@mic.ul.ie, and I look forward to hearing from you. The best of luck with the Leaving Cert.
That's great. Thank you so much, Rosemary, for that presentation. Just to remind you all that all of the speakers that you'll hear tonight can be contacted. Their contact details are available on the college's website. So if you go to the MIC's website and look up the department that you are interested in, you'll find contact details for the members of that department. And please feel free to email those faculty members, and they'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. I can see that we have questions coming in on the question and answer function, so I just encourage you to keep those questions coming in. This is your unique opportunity to get the question that you want answered. You'll get the answer tonight to those questions. So I'm going to move now to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Michael Finneran, who is head of the Department of Drama and Theatre Studies. So I'm going to hand over now to Mike.
Good evening, everyone. Lovely to be with you all, and wherever I'm reaching you, whether it's live or pre-recorded, whether you're in your kitchen, your bedroom, or perhaps hiding out in the attic, you're all very, very welcome to this set of talks. As Rachel has kindly said, my name is Mike Finneran. I'm head of the Department of Drama and Theatre Studies at Mary Immaculate College. We're the newest department, we're the newest subject on the suite of programs on the BA program. And I suppose I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I decided to forego the visuals this evening, so you'll have to stare at me, I'm afraid. But I'll spend a little bit of time telling you a little bit about what it means to study drama and theatre studies at college, because of course the vast majority of you, because of the nature of our school system, and as Rosemary said, pertaining to media and communications, haven't had a chance to study drama and theatre studies in school in the way perhaps that we teach it now. Many of you, some of you will be in youth theatre, some of you may have done a TY musical, or many of you may be avid theatre goers, or you may have had a chance to perform with church groups and so on and so forth, but you probably haven't studied the subject formally as an examination subject. And of course, the one place you will have encountered drama is as part of your English curriculum and as part of your English programs at school. And I suppose what we do at college is slightly different, but nonetheless complementary with that. So what we offer, I suppose, is a subject that's both creative and artistic, but also very much academic and practical. We try to bring all of the various strands. Drama and theatre is quite a diverse discipline, and we try to bring all of those creative various strands together into our BA program. So it's different to Leaving Cert English in the sense that certainly we're concerned with text and analysing text and understanding great works from Ibsen to Chekhov to Shakespeare, whomsoever it might be, but we're much more interested, I suppose, in the lived experience of drama and theatre, what it means to perform drama and theatre, what it might mean to make a work for the stage, what skills does one need to visit a theatre and to see a work, and to be able to mediate and to be able to critically analyse that work. But in keeping, something Des said earlier on in his talk about geography, and I think Rosemary reiterated this, is, in keeping with all the subjects on the BA program, this is very much a subject about humans. And we're particularly interested in humans and their stories, whether they're real life stories or whether they're fictionalized stories. And in telling those stories, and drama over the centuries has always been a medium whereby humanity has found a vehicle to tell its stories, whether it's the story of today, and obviously there's been huge revelation about the mother and baby homes in the media, and it was spoken about in Dáil Éireann today. I'm quite sure that some playwright, some theatre company are already working upon making a play to tell the story of that particularly tragic and horrific era in Irish society. So on our BA programme, we look very much at the ancient tradition of drama and theatre from its origins with the Greeks, but also in Asia and in many different parts around the world, and in kind of rituals associated with different human traditions. And we cover that entire span from there all the way up to, I suppose, Beckett and the O'Casey and Synge and all those famous playwrights that you would be very familiar with, but also everything in between, things that you'll never even heard of, from Commedia dell'arte to to the Roman theatre, to medieval mystery plays, to street theatre and so on and so forth in the UK. And we're interested in all of those historical traditions, but also very interested in the artistic practice. What does it look like to make theatre? So in the same way that media students get to make work for online content or radio, TV, we make stage works, and all of our modules have a practical element integrated into them, certainly in first year. And then in years 2 and 4, I'll break down the modules in a little more detail in a while. Typically, students will take one very studio-based module and one more classroom-based module in some respects. An interesting area that you mightn't be aware of in terms of drama and theatre studies is the whole area of performance studies. Performance studies is a relatively new aspect of our work. And what performance studies seeks to do is to understand the way in which the world is performed, not so much on a stage, but the way in which, so Trump was cited earlier on as an example, and Trump is a very performative individual, as we all know, and uses media, but also uses his persona very effectively to win over his followers, and indeed incite them to do all sorts of unseemly things. But breaking that down as a performance is part of what we do, how we understand gendered and social and certain performances of identity in the world. Our BA program we're very fortunate in Mary Immaculate College and Mary I to have 2 professional venues tied to the college. One is the Lime Tree Theatre. It's a 510-seat, beautiful proscenium arch theatre, which is less than 10 years old. It's already the biggest, I suppose, art centre, for lack of a better way of putting it, in the Midwest. And we received all the big companies like the Abbey and Druid and so on, as Fishamble will all come through there. Our students get a chance to see their work and to engage with their makers sometimes and with the performers. And we also have the Bell Table, which is a smaller venue, a 220-seat venue right in the heart of Limerick City. So we work very much hand in glove with the practitioners and with the professional theatre makers who run those venues, and that's a real strength to our programme. We're the newest department, as I said, in MIC, and we also offer a single honours BA programme. It's called the BA CATS, BA in Contemporary and Applied Theatre Studies. That's where you solely do drama all the time for your 4 years. But obviously this programme, your time, as has been described already, in year 1 is across 4 subjects, and then years 2, 3 and 4, 2 and 4 particularly, because year 3, of course, you're on placement or study abroad. Years 2 and 4, it's shared with another subject. And I suppose our subject sits beautifully alongside many of the other suite of subjects that you will be introduced to, including many of those on this call. I'm thinking of Gaeilge, I'm thinking of media communications, philosophy, English, music, and so on and so forth. It's a perfect complementary subject in many respects. But I suppose, why would you study drama at college? Well, that's a very good question, and sometimes people will think, well, it's not the most employable of subjects. It's unlikely that you'll get a job there. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Many of our drama graduates are beginning to find their way into the world of drama and theatre studies. But I think more than that, drama it's a starting point. It's a starting point in an undergraduate degree. A place where you can follow your passion, a place where you can follow your interest. Where you get to work with fellow students who are equally as motivated about dramatic form and about performance in the world. And sometimes an undergraduate program should be about that. It should be about, following a learning journey, fulfilling a curiosity or an itch, something, a heartfelt desire to study something. And drama can be that for many people. So if that is your thing, be not afraid, as the scripture says. Take a jump into it. It's a wonderful subject to study for a period of time. And of course, drama is also a gateway into many worlds, such as literature and culture. Academia are very obvious, but also into worlds of business. You will find drama graduates in the most unlikely of places. And what we say about drama and theatre studies is that it teaches a very effective set of skills and develops what we call transferable skills. So if you take drama in college, you can expect to grow in confidence. You can expect to gain a lot of experience in terms of teamwork and collaboration, time management and organizational skills. If you're working on a production and working on performance related tasks are essential. Self-discipline, ensemble, working with a collective, and you know, one can expect to develop an open mind and an ability to move beyond, you know, what you might have perceived to be your own boundaries, to experiment with different ideas, and communication skills. You know, the ability to tell stories is predicated upon a certain mastery of the body, but also a certain mastery of vocal skills. And an important one, the ability to criticize and to be criticized, and not to perceive it always as being deeply, you know, individual, but it being something that one might learn from. So very quickly, just to give you a little snapshot of what you would be studying in year one, again, in keeping with the other subjects, it's 2 quite broadly based modules: Introduction to Drama, Theatre and Performance, overviews a lot of the tradition, and then we do a module looking at contemporary European and world theatre, so that people see beyond perhaps the Irish canon. And then across years 2 and 4, there's a mixture of modules. As I say, performance and music is an extremely popular module. Introduction to ensemble and devising is a basic, I suppose, not a basic, but it's an important module in terms of learning to perform as part of a group. Contemporary Irish theatre, modern Irish theatre, directing for theatre, storytelling and poetry and performance, contemporary theories of performance. So each of these units will feature along the way. Our graduates then, many will go directly into employment, will have excellent communication, teamwork skills. Some will go on to further academic study. We have I think 9 PhD students in our own department. We're looking at introducing a master's degree as well. So there's a lot of postgraduate work and a lot of research in drama and theatre studies, both in the practice. Some of our PhD students make plays, as well as in written work. Some will go into, and then other graduates will go and move in a different direction altogether. Some will go off and, you know, become business people, or move into initial teacher education is always very, very popular, and so on and so forth. So I hope that's given you a little snapshot of what we do. And as Rachel has already reiterated many times, please do get in touch with us if there's any questions that you would like to ask. Don't be afraid, always better to ask the question. Do get in touch with us and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. So thank you very much, and lovely to see you this evening.
That's great. Thanks so much for that, Mike. I think you got a very good overview there of what it might be like to take drama as one of your subjects on the BA, but also of what the BA degree is like. And for those of you who couldn't join us on Monday for the general introduction to the programme and the talks on aspects of the programme such as placement and so on, and for all of the talks that will feature this week, just to remind you that they will be available on the college website and across the college's social media platforms. So tonight's talks should be available from tomorrow and so on. So you'll have an opportunity to go back and to watch the talks and look at all of the information again at your own time. So we're going to move on now to the next presenter, and I'm going to hand over shortly to Dr. Catherine Cavanagh from the Department of Philosophy. And Catherine is going to tell you all about a subject that you may not be so familiar with, but which is very which can be very popular and can be is really one of the traditional subjects in a liberal arts degree. So I'm going to hand over now to Catherine.
Well, as Rachel has quite rightly said, the vast majority of people coming into the BA degree have no idea what philosophy is. So normally, unlike other people, we're dealing with that question of, well, what is it and what's it good for and will I like it? You tend to know this already about other subjects you have an interest in. But with philosophy, you're kind of, jeepers, what's this? Well, I think the easiest way to think about philosophy is to think about, for example, subjects you may like at school. So English, for example, or history. And think about what is it you like in the different subjects that you like. Now, if what you enjoy is the discussion of, say, the ideas in a text, or maybe, you know, the reasons why certain historical events unfolded the way they did, or, you know, perhaps the motivations that led people to act in ways that seem to us extraordinary now, different ways of living, different approaches to life. If you enjoy that sort of discourse and discussion, I think there's a very good chance that you will really enjoy philosophy. In fact, it has often been our experience that students take philosophy out of sheer curiosity for the first 2 weeks. And then they come up to us and say, actually, do you know what? This is really what I came to college to do. I didn't know it was called this, but this is really what I am interested in. And that was certainly true for me. I kind of fell into philosophy almost by accident. But once I had encountered it, I knew, okay, fine, you know, this links an awful lot of other things in which I'm interested in. So this is where the core of my interest is. Now, okay, very well. What is it? Well, the word itself means love of wisdom. And as Rachel has said, it's actually nearly the oldest subject in the curriculum. And the reason for that is many of the other subjects ultimately did emerge from philosophy. Now, I'm not too sure what the English people would say to me about this, but for example, literary criticism has its origins in some of Aristotle's work on the nature of literature and drama. Philosophy is profoundly humanistic. It encompasses and embraces everything. The fundamental interest lies in really the reflection on human experience, the search for the good in human experience, reflection on the nature of truth, what it is to be a human being, indeed wondering why it is we're here at all. So it has a profound engagement with these questions of meaning, which probably have engaged you in other areas that you're interested in. The working method in philosophy was laid down over 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece, and it underpins methodology in many other areas as well. Physics, biology, you name it. These are sciences that emerged from the philosophical investigation of reality. Now, this method is really kind of a ruthless, rational examination of one's ideas. So you're testing them, which hold water, which don't, which are true, which are false. But ultimately, you're trying to find some kind of ultimate good. And I think this profound reflection is the ultimate purpose and value of philosophy. It is concerned with the ultimate good, with the ultimate meaning of human life and human existence, but it's also rigorous. There's a method there. There are things you can do that let you know you're not just, talking nonsense, Now, this inquiry, this reflection has a couple of different origins. One is wonder. I wonder why things are the way they are. Why do they happen the way they do? So wonder at the world, which works without us, and a sense of insertion into something that, in a sense, is marvelous, which we can study and know. So it leads to a curiosity about the nature of things and the desire to know for its own sake. So it's the fundamental impulse in any original scientific endeavor. Or else there's a kind of question, how do I deliver myself from, in a sense, this wheel of mortal existence? How do I become again a god? Now, this is not necessarily a negative view of the universe, but it's a reflection on how weird it is that we experience pain. We experience pain as something alien, but it's so much a part of our existence. Not one of us has not experienced pain. Why should we object to it? But we do. So pain is experienced as unnatural to us, as something which shouldn't happen. And this reflection, in many ways, is similar, for example, to certain Eastern forms of thought. Buddhism, for example, Buddha began with this sort of puzzle about pain also. So philosophy broadly can be defined as a search after the truth about the nature of the universe and of ourselves. And this is a search which many people over the past 2,500 years have believed could result in the attainment and sure knowledge of the truth sought. Now, that's a very ambitious program. But on the other hand, in a sense, throwing yourself into it has yielded extraordinary results. For example, science. Look at what we know about the world now as a result of sort of trusting that we could investigate it and understand it and know things about it. that's all very well, but what can you do with it? What's it good for? Well, ultimately, philosophy provides what's called soft skills. Ultimately, it provides wisdom, but that's a sort of a long-term goal. I suppose in the more medium term, it provides soft skills, so transferable skills. Like a hard skill is something like being able to cook. It's a specific, targeted skill, and you don't know if it will apply elsewhere. Like, will a good cook, for example, make a good office manager? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe Rachel can answer that. But soft skills, such as the ability to think critically or to think outside the box, to contextualize things, to analyze them, and to solve problems. These skills apply in, well, almost any situation you can think of. And in a very rapidly changing world, these kinds of skills are enormously valuable. I think particularly in our current situation, we really have become more than ever aware of the need to reflect. Who anticipated, even a year ago, where we would be today? I mean, really, who anticipated, shall we say, the whole COVID crisis? And how are we going to get out of it? Things have changed so much, even already. I mean, 5 years ago, we all thought Ryanair would own the world, eventually. Now, well, things look very different. What are we going to do? Now, if you have studied philosophy, you have been exposed not merely to particular ideas, however valuable, but to a method of examining, assessing, and judging all ideas. So it's no accident that philosophy first developed as it did in an era of great change and confusion. So this is in ancient Greece, when people realized 2,500 years ago that they could no longer take many things for granted and would have to learn to think about them. Now, what do our students do? That's probably the most practical question. All sorts of things. Many of them do go on into initial teacher education. I met a student of ours very recently who is now pursuing primary school teaching. But they do all sorts of things. And indeed, many of our students have come back to us to say that although they may have pursued something very different, they may have pursued a PhD in history, for example. They may have gone off and done something totally different, town planning, for example. But they're very glad they did philosophy, because philosophy taught them how to sort of organize their thinking. And this has proven useful to them in ways they can't even begin to count, The world is uncertain and employment is not guaranteed anywhere. You may very well train as an architect, as a friend of mine did, and end up working as a writer of computer games, which happened. We live in an extraordinary age. We can't possibly anticipate all situations and provide a set of cut and dried instructions for each one. The world that philosophy opens up for you can't ever be taken away, no matter what happens. So I think our best bet lies in equipping ourselves with a method of assessing any situation and of judging appropriate course of action. Philosophy can do this brilliantly, as it has done throughout the ages. Now, as everybody else has said, if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. The curriculum within the department is very broad. First year is a general introduction to some of the key important topics in philosophy. And then in subsequent years, in second year and in final year, you investigate particular areas, for example, ethics or philosophy of science, in more depth. So you expand on what has been done in first year. But, discussion of what the curriculum involves is something we can always have, if you contact us. So I wish you well, and I'll be hanging around for the discussion section afterwards. So as questions arise, you can, bring them up and I'll do my best to answer them. So thank you very much for that. And I'll hand you back to Rachel now.
That's great. Thanks you very much, Catherine. And I think you really did encapsulate what makes the beauty of a BA degree, and that is that students can pick all manner of subjects, things that they haven't tried before, and their path through life can depend on the subjects that they choose. So we're going now to our final subject of the evening, and I'm going to go shortly now to Dr. Brondan O'Cronin, who is the head of Gaeilge here in Mary Immaculate College. And Brondan is going to tell you all about taking Gaeilge as one of your degree subjects on the arts degree. So I'll hand over now to Brondan.
Okay, good magat Rachel, agus héadrú diarmin aga meid an chain seo as Gaelin fad. Ach cymad mi chimpli agus ni cymad mi roadisif a chyryd dere an tesiwn sio tranonha. Agus dar no mas fedel misha hiskint in jov bishif bra abelte toort fein Gaeilge an sa. Marsin di agus ha fáilte roiv go di rein na Gaeilge fe mar dúirt Rachel an son is misha Brondan O'Cronin. Agus valium har counterine bioganin ólis húti van jov féin mín siúla goinge an sa agus féin méid a bheith siúla goibh héin. Má ranín sibh an Gaeilge mar áhar stadéir I gláiste bhir gan smál. Is tar ná tá súla goin gnéanthaigh cuidmha a goibh é sin. A géadán sios tá mi cheola riamhfuis le feiscin de goibh an sleána an stáilm, agus má sé má heastíon bhuaibh tangáilt dhéanamhlum éon uair chuid fáilte rim cheistine is déanad maíhil fragarí a chur chuibh golua. Nis, ina hánta sa fé mar chin sibh an sleánán, tá sé le muomh nó le rá a goinge, gur bí rein na Gaeilge an rein acadúil nó an rein tangan is mó in ábh na nán. Agus má chuid san áirimh na micléin fad atá I déanamh stadéir linne ar gampus eile an uair is éile I gúnta Hebradáin, má chuid iad san áirimh is féidir in rá go bhfuil go maith os ciún séchiad macléin I déanamh stadéir ar an Gaeilge an sa is gan dáit ní beag san. Mar sin is fíor a rád ar lom go bhfuil éileh ar an Gaeilge gcónaí I meastaí nóga a há teachtamach as na man scoilne in jobh, tar éis dóibh an áirteiste méireachta dhéanamh agus tar ná an éirí libh má há sé sin a dhéanamh goibh im líana. Sin rá tastíon ó ghaoine ar chum éigint an teanga a gálam nó chur leis an méid atá arólas a có hena féin. Agus tastíon bmhótha stadéir a dhéanamh ar a tradiisiún fada sever litríochta a bhuinis léthaí. Denne míide mar sin ar seacht níhil freastal ar an éilehson, agus is áir dóchastóin na hifricha orda macléin a bhíon a going blian I ní bliana. Sin rá gachéin blian bíon annachid macléin a ddírig stadéir a dhéanamh linne. Is tólim lí go méidir gur bí an teachtracht is táchtaí a bheitcha gom díomh in jobh ná gur bí an Gaeilge féin, féin mar is léir in isistócha, gur bí an Gaeilge féin teanga chumarsáide na rinne. Sin rá gunine míid gach rod trí Gaeilge. Is Gaeilge fad a bheith le closagoibh ó léachdóirí agus ó hagascóirí rein na Gaeilge sna rangan fad, agus ní léon áras ná go gabhraíonn sé sin go mór le micléin an teanga a halabhó agus léafacht a bhaint amach iad féin. Agus beidir gur bééis sin an scill is táchtaí a há le fáil me go dtéine sé sin an teanga féinnig a leabhart go léafa agus go crín. Agus fiúmháin mar bhfuil taithí cuidigah ar a bheith a déanamh ranganna Gaeilge in Gaeilge, tá sa gom go bhfuil an nósán an Gaeilge a bhúine tre bhearla, ach is tre Gaeilge a bhí mídne feimú. Mar sin sibse náfuil beidir taithí a goibh ar ranganna Gaeilge in Gaeilge, raisibh is stoilm I daithí ar sin go hana hapig go háirithe ins na cearlanna tangan ina míon grúpaí beaga a cleachta scillanna na tangan. So tugad míad na cearlanna tangan ar ranganna beaga gur tutorials a seahiad beidir in ábhar eile. Cearlanna tangan is se language workshops. So bí míad a díú ar a bhun scillanna na tangan ins na cearlanna sa. as tá me caint an san darná éisteacht, a bheith ábalta éisteacht le caintóirí agus iad a hiiscint an teanga leabhart an san, an teanga a léamh agus darná an teanga scríomh. Tá hiatá gonne ná go muinen miléin anna hanamh fad as na rangana sa, sé sin na cearlanna teangan, na grúpaí beaga a bhína díriú skillene praticúil na teangan. A chumá lei sin buinn siad darná tainmh as ábhar na léachtaí. Mar sin tá an dáhéamh leis an gcúrsa sa gonne. An teanga féin a ghabhlam I gceart sna cearlanna, agus curamach a gháilt literíocht agus tradiisiún na teangan sna léachtaí chomá. Is be me caint fés na léachtaí níos díreach. Mar sin James an chiad sleanna an eile le tail, the next slide. A sé sin le feiscinnte níos a goibh. Tá ceist ann, cén fá an Gaeilge, well, is ceistí sin a rithach le duine gan éon dáit. Cén fá go raníonn an irid san macléin an Gaeilge mar ábhar céime gachéin bbliain. Well, sé mar a chéan sibh an sa, bíon réimse anna leathan ábhar a chlúdach a gin in argóid léachtaí. Nós mar hampala modúil na nua tríochta. Modúil iad sa ina nentar stadéir dhearcéalta, ghrámaí, uorscéalta, agus an nua ilíocht atá á scríomh in sa Gaeilge ó aimsear na habeochanna, sé sin tá caint deire na né ó híise diaag. Sé sin ó aimsear na habeochanna an nós go dtíon Arlín féin. Agus cuim sin sé seo Reint dus na scríóirí a bar a chur peann le páir in éireann riamh. Is mai dhéanann sibh stadéirlíne be sibh I léamh teachtaine le daoine mar a Fáric Ó Conradh, Martin Ó Cain, Seán Ó Riordáin, Nuala Ní Dhónal, Mícheál Ó Conéile agus Pádraig Ó Cavanagh, gan ach darnán beag a lua. Agus tá sé táhachtach a hiiscint nach a féchint siar a bhain a bhí míid, gan dáad tos ní míid de ná leis an bheochan agus rudaí a bhí á scríomh ar céad bliain á hin, a chumá leis sin bí míid a féchint timpeall orin. Mar tá rointas na daoine a luas an san ó chéine bhín tá siad le háirimh I measc na scríóirí is simúile dá bhfuil I scríomh in éireann sa lá táinniu bhain. Si sin a rá len Arlín féin. So tá bhín an bhéim an a bhór going sin, ní a bháin a féchann siar ach a féchann timpeall. Na hánta sa cuim sin argóid léachtaí, tradiisiún fada sever na Gaeilge ó ré na seanna literíochta agus an bhíolaideis an nuas go dtí ceistine có-aimseartha a bhuinis le teanga agus pobl in Gaeltachtaí an léon jobh. Sé sin an tuch hangó léocht nó sociolinguistics agus gan dáad tá anna hácht buint leis sin I gcónaí. Cílíonn sé sin a gcoinne míad stadéir ar theachsanna a bhaineann le léachra ar nós cúcholann tá an bó cúilne gan dáad. Agus sé sin epig mhór náisiúnta na hÉireann, agus chumá leis sin scialta úntacha eile a bhuinis le fiún macúil ar nós tóiríocht dhiarmada agus chráine. So bí míad a dul siar a bhad ach gan dáad bí míad a féchant timpeall ar cheistine a bhuinis le cuasaí na Gaeltachta sa lá táinniu bhain chomá. Fála mór sibh chomá fé log animnacha nó áit animnacha agus animnacha persanta na hÉireann. Réimse anhachtach dar naireacht agus de léan na Gaeilge. Agus chomá leis sin féistar na láscríbhní sa Gaeilge. Agus fiú bháin tá cuasa tosa go going ar conas na láscríbhní seo a léamh agus is cuasa é sin go muinen miléin anna hanamh ar fad as darlumm. Ba ceachta mar rá chomá go bhfuil fuireann rainn na Gaeilge, sé sin le rán na léachtóirí ar fad go móna sibh lehansa, go bhfuil siad anna gníomhach I scríomh agus déanamh taide sna réimsí seo ar fad a hálóite gom, agus mar sin be sé soléirdíobh go bhfuilinn sibh a fálam ó ghaoine go bhfuil sanolalas acu in sna hábhar seo ar fad. Agus tuis na hábhar seo ar fad a bheith cho hilgnéithach agus cho spéisiúil seo, tá níos mó macléin ná riamh dul a raig inis chun iarchéimine a dhéanamh ag leibhéal na máisteachta agus ag level na dochtúireachta, agus tá Micheál dar gcuid tráchtais máisteachta agus PhD scríomh ins na réimsí seo ar fad Gaeilge le blianta beag an nuas. Agus tá caint inis ar ghaine a dhéan tráchtais dochtúireachta in sa tochangólaíocht, in sa nualitríocht agus in sa bhéalidas agus mar sin dá. Nis tá níos mó mac léinn i'r chéime I mun ibre linn fé láthair. Tá ochtar ag ibrú linn im léana, agus sin is súile chuir leis an líon san an bhliain se chuain. Mar sin má han tú cuiineh go tain in neomh, cad a dhéana tú le de chéim sa Gaeilge beidir. Well, beidir gur site an so a bheith tú geann demlíana na mar sin I gahír an léachtóire, agus tú a ddír ag Micheál a bhela chan na Gaeilge. Si sin bíon ordan ar fad tosnú amach san áit ina bhfuilin sibse inis. Ach an dát ní hééis sin an tainrá bháin atá ag Micheál. Agus ó heh garimecha bathacha, tá i'r Micheál dar gcuid a dhéan sa déir an sa, ag ibrú mar bhúntóirí mar hampla. Tá an Ghaeilín fós an a háchtach má heastaíon bhuait a bheith I do bhúntóir bunscoile nó mánscoile. Tá i'r Micheál eile dar gcuid ag ibrú mar léachtóirí ar an drí levéil in sa chláiste seo féin agus in institúí eile. Tá daoine ag ibrú mar aisteóirí agus tá deisina úntacha ann de aisteóirí sa lá tá bhain go háirithe in san Aontas Eorpach. Tá daoine ag ibrú mar iriseóirí is mar chraoltóirí, daoine le feiscint ar TG Cahir ar RTA agus ar Radio na Gaeltachta. No, tá daoine ag ibrú I gcúrsaí éireachta agus trasóireachta. Agus is tócha gur fíor ará go bhfuil níos mó deisina ná riamh de Micheál le céibeanna in sa Ghaeilge. Agus mar sin an cheiste tá ann in áíirih ná chuna héamh nó cén fá ná díon fá stadéir iri. Is cinnte go muidir tú tainmh agus tarifa as an gcúrsa má dhéanann tú. Péisceile tá súla gom gar ráná sibh ná cuid bhathagaibh an Gaeilge an sálinne, agus má dhéanann sibh bíigí siúráiltecha go gurfar fáilte is fithe ráibh. Beidir súla ceist nógó uibh beidir I gceann tamilín, ach sinna bhfuil bhfuimse go fólaigh, tuaithe mé Harneis go dtí Rachel sibh agus gur maithagaibh as éisteachlam. Slán go fólaigh.
Margaret Brandon, and I'm sure we will get a number of questions about Gaeilge. We always do. So that concludes the presentations for this evening. So we're going to move along now to the question and answer section of tonight's information session, and you do still have time to get any questions that you would like answered in. Just type them into the question and answer function, and we will try and get to them in the next half hour or so. So I'm going to kick things off with a question for Des in geography, and that is, what is the breakdown in the geography programme between human and physical geography? Is it 50-50?
Thanks, Rachel. It's close to 50-50. I think there are slightly more modules in human than in physical geography. We offer 16 modules in all, and I think it might be 9-7 is the breakdown. But in a way, that's not really important because, as I was mentioning in my talk, students have a choice from first year on, well, from the start of second year onwards. You can choose what modules you wish to do. So you can load up on physical geography if that's your preference, or indeed on human geography if you wish to do so. As I said, it's best just to say the program is very balanced between the two, and then you've got your choice. If you want to imbalance it by your own choices, that's fine if you want to go in one direction or the other, but as it stands, it's close to 50-50.
That's great, thanks Des. I have a question now for Rosemary. Rosemary, what are the modules that are offered in Media and Communication Studies?
Okay, so all of these are listed on the website. So I'm going to recite them for you now, but in case you don't catch every word I utter, you can go to the Mary I website, go to the arts page, and then look for Media and Communication Studies, and they're all listed there in order as you take them, and there's a short description of each module. So as I said in a reply to somebody earlier, the modules are 40% practical and 60% theory based. In the first semester, you take a module called Introduction to Broadcasting, and that does what it says in the tin. It teaches you about the various sectors in Irish broadcasting and world broadcasting, so public service broadcasting, commercial broadcasting, and community or alternative broadcasters. And it looks at some of the big issues and trends, so censorship, pornography, music, and takes us two primary examples, the Eurovision Song Contest and I've forgotten the second one there. Then in the second semester, you move on to an introduction to media and communication theory. And as I said, that's really looking at how humans communicate. So one-to-one interpersonal communication when people are face-to-face. And then that's the base. And then it moves on to looking at interpersonal communication through our phones. So years ago, when I started teaching this course, I was looking at what people say in phone conversations and how they communicate. But now, obviously, we have to look at things like TikTok and Snapchat and see how people are making sense of the messages that they're creating and composing and exchanging with each other. And then we look in both of those modules in first year at what used to be called broadcasting, but nowadays on online platforms, how we get content out to people, to the audience or to citizens, and what impact or effect that might have on society, on individuals, on people as citizens, on democracy. And so that raises some of the issues that we explore in modules in the second and the fourth year, for example, journalism. So in your second year, you take a module, it's a practical module, production module in journalism. And in that, you learn how to suss out or find a story. I sent a private reply to somebody who asked a question there a few minutes ago. And without giving the name of the person, who was Tomlin, a very famous American journalist many years ago, he said that to be a good journalist, you need three things. You need curiosity, you need to have simple, clear English, not the sort of English you'd need if you were studying English as a subject. You need to be very, very clear, not write flowery prose, etc. And you need to have persistence. You need to be able to follow a story like a dog follows a bone. And so journalism teaches you those skills, and it gets you used to looking at the world and saying what might the public need to know, what's going on behind the scenes, and how do I bring that to the public. So in the old days when I started, it used to be mainly through print journalism. Nowadays that would be the smallest part of the work we do. And so that particular module is examined in 3 parts. And each of the 3 parts will show you some of the skills that you learn in it. So one of them is a news blog that you put up online yourselves, something that would be publishable in the likes of thejournal.ie. The next assignment is a radio interview. So you have to find the person you're going to interview. You've got to suss out what the story would be. You record it, and then you have to edit it down to what's called a package that could be played on Today FM or on RTE Radio 1 Morning Ireland or whatever. And all of the standards are broadcast standards, and we have fantastic equipment. I'll talk about those in a moment. And the other so there are 2 more assignments in journalism. The next one is desktop publishing. So you use the industry level software to lay out and design and lay out a magazine, and then you have to be able to write a simple article. And these are all skills that we can and do teach you. And as you can see from my talk earlier, that's where a lot of our graduates end up working, is in the field of journalism. And I see a question coming up later, somebody who wants to be the next Donny O'Sullivan or the next Brian O'Donovan of RTE. And I might respond to that separately in a moment, Rachel. I sent that person quite a detailed response. But in second year, so you take journalism, and the other practical or production module you take in second year is a basic introduction to audiovisual production. And when we started teaching that, it was mainly for television production, but now obviously the majority of the jobs are not just in television, they're producing content for online platforms. And so most of you are able to make a simple TikTok video. And when we bring it beyond that level, we have really good, as I say, industry standard equipment. And we have a television studio, which has, the correct lighting kits, sound kits, the right mics. We have a TriCaster, which means that in studio we can have 3 cameras working at the one time. And in that module, it's also based around the skills you need for journalism. So the assessment for that course is the production, the presentation, the researching of the presentation and the production of a news program, and that's a live news program, or as in live in studio. So that's quite a demanding piece of work. People work in a crew, but it really sets the scene for people going out to work in work placements in radio stations, television stations, with individual film production units in their 3rd year. But it's also the basis for the production course which you take in 4th year. So this is quite a long answer, I'm afraid, folks, but I've been asked for some details. So the other modules you take in 2nd year then are two theory-based modules. One is sociology of the media. And for people who don't know what sociology is, basically it's looking at how people conduct their lives, what people do, particularly in groups. And so we look a lot in that, in media the sociology of media, in what audiences are doing. So not just when we're plonked in front of the television, you've got one screen in the room and there could be up to 4 or 5 people in the room, each of whom is either on their phone or their tablet. And somebody else might be cooking the dinner and listening to something in their headphones. So you can have lots and lots of different media in play in one room at the time. So one of the things that we research with 2nd years is to look at what is your own media usage and what are the people that you're living with, family or flatmates or whatever, doing. And it's not just what they say they're doing or what they think they're doing. It's an examination of the benefit that they're getting from it, or what we call in the field, the uses and gratifications that people get from their media usage. And then the final module in 2nd year is one called film studies, and that's quite simply a critical view of the development of film worldwide. So we look at Hollywood, the Hollywood classics, and we also look at the avant-garde, at European film, and more recently at things like Japanese anime, etc. We try and put it into a chronology being a timeline, so people get an idea of the development of the film industry in over 100 years. And that's a very good basis. While it's a theory-driven module, it's a really good basis for film production, obviously, or for content production of any sort. In your 3rd year, then you go off and work in a placement in a television station, or we have placement in Snapchat in London, a paid placement, for example. And different people, go and work in different fields and areas, and it's a good way to try out what you might like to work in. But over the years, several people have been invited by their employer to stay on, and I always recommend to the student to say, thank you very much, I'll come back to you in a year's time when I have my degree, get your degree in the bag. If they wanted you when you were in your 3rd year, they'll still want you when you're finished your 4th year and you have a degree behind you, and it makes you much more, it means that it's much easier for you to change jobs later rather than getting maybe stuck in the one place that you went on placement. In your 4th year then, in your 4th year, you have a production module, which is a carry-on from the 2nd year one. And this is the one I was talking about, where you get to make a documentary on any topic of your choice. It's a 20-minute documentary. It's of broadcast standard. Every year, students enter in different national and international competitions and do very well in them. This series has been going, it's been a module we've been teaching for over 24 years. And every year we have a kind of like an Oscars night where students, their boyfriends and girlfriends, their parents, their siblings, groups of friends come usually to the Bell Table Theatre in Limerick, and we have a lovely posh dressed up night with cheese and wine afterwards, and a celebration of the 4 years work really that's been done, the outstanding work that's been done by our students. It's a really good showcase too. Troy Studios come to it and other employers come along to see what our students are doing. The other practical module in 4th year then is a module which is called something like dramatic art and communication, but really is in fact is a module which teaches you how to write a script. So it teaches you, if you have an interest in, some people have interest in being in front of the camera. Most of the modules we teach deal with that, but particularly we're interested in behind the camera. So the producer, the director, the screenwriter, and the woman who teaches that is an acknowledged screenwriter herself and is the on the International Board of Women in Screenwriting and is the chairperson of the Irish Guild of Screenwriters at the moment, Women in Screenwriting rather. And there the assessment is the film script that you produce, but you do it in small groups, you write your own script and it's workshopped. So it's very different to your time in school. The classes are very, very different. And the two theory-driven modules, in fourth year, we usually have a choice where you take 2 out of 3 electives. I teach one, it's called Media, Culture and Society, and I'm looking at my colleague Catherine Cavanagh there from the philosophy department. There are a lot of parallels with philosophy, and I find that the philosophy students who are taking media along with it really bring a lot to those discussions and to that class. It's about it's a way really of looking at.
And actually, sorry to interrupt, Rosie. We have a couple of questions for philosophy as well, so that'll probably be covered in the next question.
Okay, I'll get my last one in. So seeing as how I'm going on, so I'll get my last subject then. You have a choice between a module which is called Children and the Media, or an advanced analysis and exploration of drama in film and television. That's it, folks.
That's great. Thanks, Rosemary. Just before I come to the philosophy question, there is a question there for Mike, and that is, will I study acting as part of drama and theatre studies?
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to look at drama and theatre studies without studying acting in some way, shape, or form. We look at it from a theoretical point of view in terms of different. There are obviously different ways in which performers perform on stage. So we look at the kind of theory of that. And we then study, we teach acting in a very embedded fashion. So we don't kind of say this is an acting class, but acting is taught as part of a devising process, or as part of an ensemble approach to theatre, or as part of, you know, a process of textual analysis, whatever it might be. So yes, it would always be our expectation that our students, if they're interested, not all people who study drama and theatre want to be actors as well. And it's not necessarily, you know, if you're sitting on this call thinking, oh, I have to be interested in acting, or I have to be kind of extroverted in some way, shape, or form to study drama at college, that's not necessarily the case. So it's not an imperative that you would study acting, but it's certainly important to understanding the art form as a whole, that you would, even if you never intend to act in your entire life.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. Just to remind people as well that we will do our very best to get to as many questions as we can in the time allowed. But if you have other questions, you can, of course, get the contact details for faculty members on the college website. So I'm going to go over now to Catherine with a question about philosophy. And the question is philosophy linked to religion? And would those two subjects be a good combination?
Well, the thing about philosophy and religion is that, in a sense, they have a similar concern with questions of meaning and with questions of meaning, the meaning of life. But they approach it from very different angles, because philosophy really approaches these questions on the basis of, you know, what can I myself, on the basis of my observation, on the basis of my own reflection, on the basis of, you know, interaction with others, what can I kind of know or conclude about this? Now, religion is itself a very complex phenomenon, and in fact there is a sub area of philosophy called philosophy of religion, where we kind of say, well, what is this anyway, you know? But religion, as most people in Ireland know it, tends to be based on some kind of claim of a special insight or a special revelation. Whereas philosophy tends to say, look, no, I mean, if you're prepared to sit down and sort of think about things, you know, you can follow what I'm doing. So, like, clearly, you know, people who are interested in religion tend to be interested in philosophy, and, you know, people who are interested in philosophy tend, you know, they may not be sympathetic to religion, but there's a similar kind of concern there. So I think, now, if you're studying religion, that'll be theology here. So I think if you're doing theology, you probably will find that philosophy actually helps it a lot, you know. And then there's information that you pick up too in theology that also helps, you know, helps to give you some insight in philosophy. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, Catherine. I have a question now for Brondawn. The question is, do I need to have honours level Irish in my Leaving Cert to take it as part of the BA? And is it a lot more difficult at third level than Leaving Cert?
Okay. Well, Hannigan Keshti Mirla. It came in English, did it, Rachel?
Yes.
Okay, how should I answer? Bechacht Gomach H2 got in sonar test. You should have H5 grade in the Leaving Cert. Ma has the void to it fein Gaeilge. So I guess fein mar vi sa ra live nies tuiske ma vi variable to mishe hishkin to nyov so kind to yenis near Chat Gomach more on Jachach to go. If you understood all or most of what I was saying earlier, you should be okay. H2 an art test sure all to ach need any grant a glich. There's nothing carved in stone. Maha Jachrat to got is feather tangalt again of lum. You can contact me, you have my contact details. Is it more, what was the other part? It is a step up from the Leaving Cert. Tasha Hantu dal soos level order. Ach, Mata an order got in an art test near Carcamach more on Jachrat a got lesh gorse in Sikevlia.
That's great. Thanks, Brondan. And just a reminder as well that you can try out subjects in first year before you make your final decision. That's one of the advantages of the BA degree at Mary Mackle College. So they could absolutely try out all the subjects before they decide on their final 4. So I have another question for Des about geography, and that is, you mentioned that I don't need Leaving Cert geography in order to take geography as part of the degree, but would I be at a disadvantage?
It's very hard to answer that because, I mean, if somebody has a very good Leaving Cert geography, then they have certainly covered a little bit already of the first year program in geography, and there's no gainsaying that. I mean, many of the topics that you will take in Leaving Cert geography will re-emerge in first year here. Now, having said that, the approach at third level in geography is quite different from that at second level. And sometimes even students who have done Leaving Cert and have done quite well in it will find things quite different in approach, and they'll say to us things like, oh, this is not like, you know, what I was doing in secondary school. That's quite different. So I don't know if I would say you're at a disadvantage. I think if you're prepared to put in the work, then you're going to be fine. And as I said, we do know from existing students that they have managed to negotiate geography all the way to degree without having had a Leaving Cert in geography. In fact, now it's a few years ago, but I did go to the trouble of gathering some hard data on this, looking at the performance of students in their final degree exams and comparing that then, or breaking that down as between those who had and hadn't taken Leaving Cert geography, and there was no marked differential. In other words, what the students did in Mary Mackle College was far more important in determining their final degree than what they had done in secondary school or not, as the case may be. So, you know, it's a difficult question to answer categorically one way or the other. What I would say is that if you are really interested in geography and you have a bit of a passion for it and a desire to pursue it, then it wouldn't be put off. And we have had lots of students like that in the past. So that's great. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, of course, and absolutely it ties in with what has been said all through the week, in that you should choose the subjects that you're interested in.
Exactly.
You should do better in,
exactly.
the subjects that you have an interest in. Thanks, Des. I have another question for Catherine. Does philosophy involve the use of mathematics?
I'm actually, sorry, where's my microphone? Oh yeah, there it is. I'm actually typing an answer to that as we speak. I mean, philosophy is logical. So, you know, in the same way as mathematics is structured and, you know, one thing leads to another and, you know, there's a process you follow. Yes, I mean, there's an element of that about philosophy. I mean, it's quite analytic. On the other hand, you know, we're not doing numbers, we're not doing calculations. The philosopher Descartes said that, you know, basically what we needed to do was kind of maths without the numbers, you know, if you can imagine that, you know. But then there are areas of philosophy that are really not at all like mathematics. So, for example, the whole reflection on beauty or aesthetics, that's quite different, you know. But we've had mathematicians, so to speak, doing philosophy, and they tend to enjoy it. They tend to do well. They like, if you like mathematics, you tend to like, you know, the sort of the analytic and structural element in philosophy, you know. So, but you know, that's it's not all like that, you know. So,
yeah, that's great. Yeah. Thanks, Catherine. And I'm just going to get on to the question, and I know Mike was answering this as well earlier. To become the next Donny O'Sullivan, who seems to be the flavour of the month on CNN, what additional subject would work well with media? So, Rosemary, I'll direct it to you, but the rest of you feel free to jump in.
Okay, well, I've actually sent quite a detailed response to this anonymous request, and I hope that will answer it in more detail. But for anybody who wants a job in journalism, really, we provide the basic skills, certainly, but the advantage of taking media and communication studies in Mary Immaculate College is exactly that you take a second subject and it gives you a second string to your bow. So just looking around me at my colleagues here, you could take philosophy, and that gives you a really deep understanding of how people think and how they work, and it gives you a really good set of skills in order to unpick a particularly thorny problem and to use, as Catherine said, logic there. Drama, obviously, I'm looking at Mike Finneran in front of me here. Again, very heavily based on communication skills. And for those of you who want to work in front of camera or in front of the mic, and presentation, hugely important and very valuable. Irish, Anna Hábhachtach, go háirithe do dhaoine atá ag géirí bheith gobar RT Radio na Gaeilge nó TJ Cahar. Some people use the experience they get through working in Irish language media to work then on the likes of the BBC World Service or RTE through English. So it's a really big advantage to take Irish. I would say nearly half of all our students take English as a second subject. Geography, Des has spoken here tonight about the human side of geography, really gives you as a journalist a really keen set of observation skills and a whole literature that you can draw on, you know where to go to for sources. So I'll just give this very short anecdote. A friend of mine, she's become a friend of mine, a journalist in RTE, tells a story of how in her original degree she did two subjects we don't offer here. She did a thing called Greek and Roman civilization and another subject called archaeology, and her parents despaired of her ever getting anywhere. But at the time when she was growing up, her grandfather lived with them and he was bedridden, and she used to spend hours sitting with him and writing down the cricket scores for him. And when she graduated with her degree in Greek and Roman civilization and in archaeology, everybody said she wouldn't get a job anywhere. She threw her hat in the ring. These were the days before you could study journalism or media. She threw her hat in the ring, arrived at a job interview in RTE, the sports department, and when asked about GAA and rugby, she said, I don't know anything about those. She was asked, was there any sport she knew anything about? She said, I happen to know a bit about cricket, and it just so happened that they needed somebody to string on their cricket spot because cricket wasn't very popular in Ireland 40 years ago, nor is it still very popular today. She went on from that part-time job in RTE to become a senior radio producer in RTE Radio 1, and is coming to the end of her very successful career there. So there is nothing you do in life, subject-wise or pastime-wise, that will not prove useful to you in some way. What you get with an arts degree, and I think I speak for all of us tonight in saying that from any of the subjects here, you get a deeper insight into yourself as a human being, but also into the way the world operates. And we would expect that when you leave with a degree in the liberal arts from Mary Immaculate College, that you would have a much wider perspective on the world, and that you would go forth into the world as somebody who will contribute to society, to the protection and promotion of democratic values, and to making literally the world a better place.
That's great. Thanks, Rosemary. Mike, I have another question. This was actually sent in to me today by a guidance counsellor, just asking if students would need to have a background in theatre, amateur dramatics, in order to take drama and theatre, or could they just start it from scratch?
No, it's a really good question, Rachel, and it's one that comes up time and time again. So thanks to that guidance counsellor who actually asked it. No is the answer. We have the benefit of, I suppose, being the newest drama programme in the country, and we set ourselves up very much in the sense that we would make this programme accessible to all of those. Some students obviously have the benefit of being perhaps in a large urban area, or maybe going to a school where drama is provided as an extracurricular option, but that's not available to everyone. So in the interest of I suppose, accessibility and equity, our programme is premised on the idea that we teach you anything you need to know about drama and theatre and performance. And as has been the case with so many of my colleagues' answers throughout the evening, you know, all of these subjects are to some degree interdisciplinary insofar as, you know, we teach Aristotle in drama, for example, you know, in terms of the unities of tragedy. I dare say if I were to probe deep enough, I'd find some social geography in some of our courses as well. You know, so it's not that we're just starting anew. I suppose we're building on what students will have acquired from English or from Gaeilge or from geography or history at school, and we're pulling all of those strands together and I suppose layering drama and theatre into that. But no, please let me dispossess people of the idea that you have to be, you know, you have to have a speech and drama certificate, or you have to be out front with the local Dramatic Arts Society. That's not the case. It's a subject that is absolutely accessible and welcome to all comers. And I suppose we pride ourselves in the belief that it is a subject. It's not just about those who want to go on and perform in some way, shape, or form. It's about people who really want to understand why storytelling and why the making of theatre is important to who we are as human beings.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. And I know we're gone well over time, but I'm going to fit in one more question. And before I go to the final question, I'm going to just remind people as well, following on from that question about drama and theatre studies, that tomorrow evening we have the final subject talk for the Bachelor of Arts programme, and we'll be looking at 4 further subjects. That is mathematics, theology and religious studies, French and history. And again, that session starts at 5 p.m. tomorrow evening. And after that session at 6:30, we have an information session on our other degree programme. That is the BA CATS, which is in Contemporary and Applied Theatre Studies. So that's at 6:30 tomorrow evening. And again, all details are on the college website and on our social media platforms. So I'm going to go for the final question back to Catherine. There are a lot of questions about philosophy. What is the difference between sociology and philosophy?
Right, that's a tricky one for me to answer because essentially I'm not a sociologist. My guess would be, this is my best guess, my guess would be sociology obviously focuses on human society, and you know, there's a practical interest in sort of social problems and social issues and resolving social issues. So what I would say about philosophy is that clearly that's of great interest in philosophy. You know, we do discuss, you know, the sorts of problems that come up day to day. But philosophy also has an interest in kind of reflection on the nature of reality as such. It's kind of a fairly broad compass, you know. So, you know, I mean, the sort of the traditional way of talking about it was talking about the soul, but in a sense there's a reflection on the sort of the individual as such, and the individual's sort of relation with himself, I suppose, or herself. Then there's that sort of reflection on, I mentioned the reflection on the nature of beauty earlier, or as Mike just mentioned, kind of sort of Aristotle's work on drama. So philosophy sort of it kind of goes around the houses, I would say, to a certain extent, to a greater degree than sociology. But I think myself and a sociologist would probably need to get together in the same room and kind of hammer out the final differences, you know. But that, as I say, that's my best sort of shot at answering that. I think philosophy has interest in areas that don't necessarily come in under sociology. So things like, for example, aesthetics, or things like, say, ontology, which is kind of the reflection of the nature of reality as such, you know. So I hope that helps.
That's great. Thanks, Catherine. Now, we have gone well over time, but that, of course, is the beauty of a BA degree, is that there are so many possibilities. It does take quite a lot of time to go through each of them, and we've only touched the tip of the iceberg here this evening. So I just want to thank all of our presenters, to thank you most importantly for attending, and just to remind you again, keep an eye out on our social media platforms for links to the recordings from tonight's presentations and to the other presentations. And if you have any further questions, please do go to the college website, seek out the contact details for the department that subject you're interested in, and do send them an email. They're very used to getting emails from all over the country, and we'll be more than happy to help you. If you have a question, a general question about the BA program in general, you can of course send your questions to the Faculty of Arts office, and that email address is artsoffice@mic.ul.ie. So thank you once again for attending, and a big thank you to all of our speakers tonight. Good night.